Guys, this is topic 7, which is user-centered design. And so here we go. Let's first start by defining what user-centered design is. And it's often shortened to UCD. So it's a design process paying particular attention to the needs of potential users of a product through involvement of users at all stages of the design process. This is the key thing. You are involving the user at all stages of the design process. Now, let's think about this, what came before this. So the idea of user-centered design is it's not new, but for a long time, users really weren't considered as much. The designer would be the person who would, basically dictate how the product was used, the tasks and the environments that it would be in. So what we're trying to do with user-centered design is really just involve the users. And this is going to give us some important insights into products, how products are used, and how they should be designed. So this is also very important for your IA. You need to include the user. User research is going to be super important to incorporate into the entire design process as you work on your internal assessment. Okay, so let's define what a user is. So a user is a person utilizing a product. So a person is being affected by the product or is reaping the benefits or drawbacks of a product. Now, when we're considering the user, we need to consider how the user is likely to use a product. We need to test the products with actual users, and we need to be empathetic. So UCD puts the design team in direct contact with the people they are designing for. And this is a key idea here. We also need to empathize with potential users to understand their thoughts, their needs, values, and beliefs. Now, here's a couple of examples of a product that was designed with the user in mind, probably with user testing, which would be something like this Apple remote. This is very simple. It's got 4 directional buttons. It's got the middle button to select. It's got a menu, and then it's got a play pause. So really, it's got 7 things that you can actually press and use. And it's very intuitive, right? You understand that that's up, that's down, that's left, that's right. You know what a menu is, so menu, and this is the play pause button. Now, if you look at this is probably designed by a designer. It's got a huge range of functionality, but it wasn't designed with the user in mind. Most users are not going to be using some of these strange buttons down here, like this one. What is this? The first language or second language? That's probably a button that no one's going to use very often. So this was designed with a large range of functionality. However, the range of functionality is not needed. So users are confused by this. Mostly, if you look, they're probably using the directional arrows here, the center button for enter, the power button. They're probably using the channel changer and the volume changer, and the play pause, which is at the bottom down here. When this menu disappears, you can see it. Down here, you can see the play pause down at the bottom. Okay, those are the things that they're probably using, which is not very dissimilar to what you see here. So this is an example of a designer who has gone way above and beyond what the users actually use, and probably didn't keep the user in mind as they were designing this product. Now, let's talk about tasks. So products are designed to accomplish tasks. So a task is defined as the thing that a product is supposed to do. However, the user may have several sub-uses for the products. So UCD is going to take into account common tasks. And a good example of this would be ATM screens and washing machine interfaces. So an interface should be standard so users can use all machines, and important functions are easily recognized. So like here, I don't speak German, but I think I could figure out how to use this ATM machine right here. Like I know bitten means please, but I don't know really what all of this means here, but I understand that at this point on this screen, what I'm doing is I'm entering the amount of money that I would like to withdraw from this ATM screen. And how do I know this? Because they're standard all over the world. This is telling me that I need to withdraw in 20 euro increments. These are some common numbers that people withdraw, amounts that people withdraw. And, you know, I can type in the exact amount that I want here and push, I guess, enter. I'm guessing that means enter, right? So it's pretty standard, and it's pretty easy to understand how to use an ATM machine all over the world, even if you don't speak the language. Now, let's look at this thing. This is a washing machine, and I have, you know, I understand some of the symbols. So for instance, I understand 90 degrees, 60, well, I'm not sure why 60 in this plus symbol, but and then you have 60 here. But, you know, I can understand those. I know this means cotton. I know this means wool. I have no idea what that means, and I don't know what that means. I don't know what this E means. I'm not sure what these other symbols mean on here. It's very confusing. It's not an interface that I understand. In fact, I would have to read a manual to understand what's going on with this. I do understand this. This is your spin cycle. And so on the spin cycle, you know, I can choose to have 400 revolutions per minute or 5, 6, 7, 800 revolutions per minute. So that I understand. But the rest of these symbols are kind of confusing to me. What is this one? What is this one? What is that one? I don't understand them. So, you know, this is not intuitive like an ATM machine. All right, the environment in which a product is being used is also something that we need to pay attention to. So environment is the place where a product is likely to be used. And, you know, as UCD designers, we need to take into account the use of the product in a particular environment. So for instance, a car or a kitchen. Let's look at a car in particular. The location and layout of controls promote efficiency and safety while driving. Car window controls on the door like this, that's intuitive, and it's, you know, it's not something that you need to look at. So the idea with car controls is that you shouldn't be taking your eyes off the road in order to use the controls. So you can use these controls without looking, and they're in a convenient place right next to the driver on the left-hand side in cars that are in where we drive on the right. You know, of course, in the UK, these would be all on the right-hand side of the car, but it's going to be on the left-hand side in cars, for instance, in Saudi Arabia. And then the same with this, like newer cars have a lot of controls that are on the steering wheel because, again, it's something that you can manipulate with your hands without having to take your eyes off the road. So that's taking the environment into consideration, making sure that we have safety and efficiency while driving. All right, another key element of UCD is empathy. So when you are empathetic, you are taking the place of the user to see who potentially could use the product, and the object could be better suited for that consumer. Okay, so the idea is to take their place, to try to figure out what is it like to be a user of these things. And that's called empathy. It's sort of understanding how other people feel and their needs and wants. And that's actually one of your most important jobs as a designer. And this is where you're going to get many of your design ideas to start with, is with empathy. You're looking at something and saying, okay, well, how can I help solve a need that people have? Here's some good examples of the opposite of empathy. So if you click on this and look at the designs that are in here, they're purposely designed without the user in mind, with, you know, basically trying to make somebody's life harder rather than easier. It's kind of an interesting website. And it's actually kind of a neat exercise on how to design something poorly. So please do click on this website here and have a quick look at those. All right, when we're talking about user-centered design, or any design really, we have the product, and I'm going to use this stool as an example. You'll have a product, and basically the three legs of this stool are the fact that a product needs to be useful, usable, and desirable. So you might have a usable and desirable product, but if it's not useful, then one of these legs gets removed, and basically that product is not viable within the marketplace. And the same thing goes for all of them. You know, you might have something that's useful and desirable, but not usable, then of course that product's probably not long for the marketplace. Or you have something that's desirable, useful and usable, but not desirable, nobody wants it, then of course, you know, that's going to be something that's going to be a problem, and your product will not sell in the marketplace. So you have to think of these useful, usable, and desirable as being the three legs that hold up your product and allow it to actually be useful and something that will actually sell and something that we can market. Okay, So user-centered design. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to design a useful product. It's sorry, user-centered design is very useful when we're trying to create a new product and introduce it to the market. Designers need to engage actively with users. So, and I can't emphasize this enough, and this is in the name, user-centered, user-centered. So the user is the center of the design, not the designer. If this was designer-centered design, then this would be DCD, right? So we're making sure that the user is the center. We're gathering insight from the earliest stages of a product development through the design process. So from the start to the finish, you are engaging users into that whole design product. And basically, the user is helping you make your product brief. So your design brief, the sort of reason that you're creating something, is your design brief, and usually that is actually focused on solving somebody's problems. So it's some issue that a person has, that you're some need that they have that you're trying to solve. So user-centered design feeds into that process. And now it's a shift. It's a shift from the way things used to be done. So away from conventional market research techniques to considerations of the user experience. So, in the past, people would design design something, and then they would just push it out to users and say, see what stuck. Well, does this work? Are people buying it? I mean, Henry Ford was famous for saying that, with his Model T Ford back in the, when they were first making them, he said something like, users can have, or well, buyers can have any color of car they want as long as it's black, right? So that is the idea of conventional marketing. You make, the designers and manufacturers make something, and then they push it out to the market and see what sticks, see what people buy. Now, what you're doing is you're actually considering the user experience in order to create that new product, which I think just makes more sense, to tell you the truth. User-centered design usually involves a smaller number of people than conventional market research. Okay, so you're engaged with a smaller set of people, and usually these are the people who have the need, rather than just a massive market research campaign where you are trying to target lots of people in the market. It can lead to unexpected insights that stimulate innovation. So you'll see that some people will give you some ideas. The users will give you some idea that you might not have thought of, and that can lead to new innovations. Conventional market research may be flawed, as users often do not tell researchers the true facts about a product, or they cannot identify how and why they will use the products, particularly in radical designs. So this idea that we'll design something and push it out to the market, well, the users might not actually tell you the truth about how they're using the product, or why they're using the product, or if they're using these products. Okay, and that's, again, particularly for something like a design that is brand new. Okay, being aware of the experience of end users can lead designers to question established practices and assumptions, and UCD enables user feedback to inform product redevelopment even after launch, sometimes in quite a radical way. So UCD can really, you're again involving the user in the entire process, and that feedback helps to make sure that the product is improved before launch, but then after you've launched it to the marketplace, you can continue to improve it and make it better and better and better. And this is a cyclical thing, which we'll talk about in a second, and that's why I'm making circles on my screen with my cursor. Okay, because I want you to understand this is a cyclical, it's a design cycle, right? So let's look at that. Oh, before we do, this is an example by a guy named Danny New, and I'd like you to watch this. He's talking about user-centered design. And so please take some time watching this, and he'll explain his thinking of, and the design process of making a baby carriage. Now, this is also really interesting. There are something called, there's a guy named Norman. His last name was Norman. I forget his first name. But he looked around and he looked at doors. And so this is an example of something that is called a Norman door, right? What that means is that this says pull, but this says push, right? So the bar here says push, but the sign says pull. Usually, if you want something to pull, then you want it to have a vertical um, pull bar, right? But this kind of bar on the window or on the door says push, and so people will regularly not read this big pull sign and they will push on this door. It's just, it's an interesting thing. These are examples of poor design and poor thought, not considering the user um, in that process. And so do watch this video. It's kind of interesting. And these are called Norman doors, and they're basically badly designed doors. They're everywhere. Our school is chock full of Norman doors, which are badly designed doors. All right, we're going to, in class, we did a field trip where we went around the school and we actually looked at those doors and figured out which ones didn't take the user into account. All right, iterative. Now, user-centered design is iterative, and so this is the act of repeating a process with the aim of approaching a desired goal, result, or target. Each repetition of the process is also called an iteration, and the results of one iteration are used as a starting point for the next iteration. So we'll get into that in just a second, but iterative is the idea of repeatedly improving a design to make it better and better and better. And the user needs to be in this process. So here we go. This is the user-centered design process, okay? And it starts with, it's iterative. Designs are usually intuitive, so that means that it's something that somebody can basically understand how to use without a lot of training. And it's designed with the user in mind, and it feels effortless. When you use something that is designed well, it literally feels just effortless. It doesn't seem like it needs much training. It just feels right? Okay, so we're going to go through each of these in order. So we'll go to research, concept, design, implementation, and then launch. But notice that this is a circle, and notice that there are lots of other little circles around here. So this is kind of the user design cycle. So research. When we're looking at research, we're looking at context studies, focus groups, competitor comparisons, in-depth interviews, questionnaires, user personas and scenarios, user goals, usability goals. So we're doing research into our users and understanding what their needs are. And these are different ways that you can gather information. And these kinds of things right here are kind of outlining the goals, kind of looking at the type of person that's going to be using it, and how effortless and easy and intuitive it is. Okay, these first ones, the context studies, focus groups, competitor comparisons, depth interviews, and questionnaires are really ways of gathering data. Whereas these are looking at your users, these are looking at the task, and this is looking at intuitiveness. So business and user problems and requirements are analyzed. So basically, in the research, you're looking at what is the business or user problems that need to be solved. What are the needs? The user, the task, and the environment are considered. So you need to consider who are your users, what needs to be accomplished, and where is it accomplished. And this can be done with a multidisciplinary team. It can be ethnographers, it can be anthropologists, psychologists, with lots of people. And big design firms will do that. They'll have a multidisciplinary team. So disciplinary, by the way, means like subjects. So you're going to have designers and engineers, and you're going to have ethnographers. So these are people who study ethnic backgrounds, and you have anthropologists. These are people who study people, and psychologists. These are people who study psychology, right? So all of those are going to go into this research. So once you've done that research, you're going to go on to a concept, right? And so you're going to make concept models. Okay, so these are just like ideas. You're going to use usage scenarios, prototypes, paper prototypes, usability testing, expert evaluations. But you're going to be kind of creating models of your product that you've researched. So you've done the research. Now you're going over to the concept. How am I going to solve this problem? So initial ideas are put forward. Concept modeling takes place, including paper models. So paper models are basically, drawings and things like that. You're going to maybe make some three-dimensional models. So these allow tactile and appearance evaluations. Evaluations fed back into the design cycle. So it kind of will repeat itself down here, right? And it's quick and cheap to usually carry out these kinds of things. Okay. So that's the concept. It's coming up with the ideas. So this is establishing a need, coming up with ideas to solve that. Then you're going to actually design the product. So you're going to design product structure diagrams, process flow, wireframes. So this would be like a 3D model, interactive prototypes. Prototypes are working models, card sorting, usability testing, accessibility evaluation, expert evaluation, functional specifications. That's all going to go into this idea of creating some sort of design. So this is like a physical thing that you can test with people. So you're going to develop those ideas. You're going to make scaled models such as prototypes or mock-ups. You're going to monitor the performance against usability requirements. So those are like, okay, well, how is this meant to be used? Does my product actually perform against those requirements? It's going to allow for continued evaluation by user and design teams. So again, notice the little circles here. So this is where you're going to continually improve that product. And then the evaluation's fed back into the design cycle. All right, implementation. So implementation means various testing and evaluations are carried out with a wide range of end users. The evaluation is fed back into the design cycle. A multidisciplinary team is used to measure the end user psychology and physiological experience. So, this is where you're testing your final product. So you've gone through several iterations of your product. So several different ideas about it, and now you're taking it back in and you're testing the usability of sort of the final product. You have expert evaluation and you have accessibility evaluation. So this is where you're kind of implementing all of those ideas and coming up with that final product to test. And then that, of course, is going to get launched. And so that's the end there, where you are launching. So the end product is launched. That means it's put out into the marketplace. Okay, continuous evaluations are carried out and monitoring the performance against the usability requirements. So what happens here is you're continually looking at your product, and even after launch, your product can come back into the cycle because maybe you have another iteration that's coming out in the following year. You're adding some features or something like that to it to make it better. Okay, and so you're going to be using usability testing here, expert evaluation, accessibility evaluations, focus groups, competitor comparison, and other metrics to help measure how successful your product is in the marketplace after launch, after you've pushed it out into the marketplace. All right, inclusive design. So let's first define that. So inclusive design is the design of mainstream products and or services so that they are accessible and usable by as many people as possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. Okay, so the idea here is that you're creating something that everybody can use, not just a select group of people. So if we go back here, I'd like you to watch this video. In this video, they're basically going to show you some it's going to give you some good understanding of what it means to have inclusive design, trying to include everybody in your design and not, well, the opposite of inclusive was exclusive. So you're not trying to push somebody out of using your product. So that's called inclusive design. Please do watch this video. All right, and that's it for me today. Thanks for watching.